The Card Counter. This is the latest film from, I guess, acclaimed director Paul Schrader. It's fine. I liked it. I think I liked it. Then I was just like, oh no, it's just Taxi Driver, isn't it? It's pretty much just Taxi Driver with a new coat of paint. And that kind of hurt my viewing experience after I remembered that Paul Schrader wrote Taxi Driver. Look, I'm a big fan of Oscar Isaac. That's kind of why I went into this film and was like, okay, he's doing some card counting thing. I was like, is this just going to be like Molly's Game? It's going to be like hyper realized version of just like playing poker and doing some fun stuff. But it was like, nope, this is a slow, methodical burn about like one man's journey in this world after being wronged by the people who put him there. And you're like, okay, cool. And then you're like, Oscar Isaac's doing great. Tiffany Haddish doing fantastic work. But then you start to think about the stuff that happens in Taxi Driver. And you're like, okay, that character is clearly the Jodie Foster character. Okay. That's the Albert. Okay. And once you see that, this is just an old man remaking Taxi Driver with poker. Which, you know what? I still enjoyed it. I think there's some really strong moments in here. It plays with some great themes about the military and how it warps your brain, especially like interrogation methods and terrorism and being kind of just like absolved of your crimes for stuff you weren't forced to do, but then you were forced to do, and how that affects your brain and the way you like deal with your trauma and the things that you remember, like the quiet moments. And I think that stuff is very impressive in this story. And I think Oscar Isaac makes this something better than bullshit. Because if it's anybody else, and I really think if you get a lesser talent than Oscar Isaac in here, this becomes something boring and uninteresting. But the fact that he was just so perfectly willing to commit to that role in the quiet moments, the loud moments, he was scary, he was weak, he just played everything perfectly well. You really bought that character. And you bought that world that was built up in here. And I'm a big Oscar Isaac fan. And I think this is one of the stronger roles he's done recently, where you just feel like this guy could hurt you. He's not the scariest looking dude, Oscar Isaac, but you just feel like he could hurt you in this situation. And I like the way that even the idea of like casinos and poker are presented in this story, where it's just like kind of this intense building thing. But it's also like this very stiff and quiet, stoic moment where it's all about that moment and like everything else around you can happen, but you're just drawn into that thing. It's kind of cool. It's interesting enough where my interest was kept throughout it. And I think like it's mainly Oscar Isaac and Tiffany Haddish that did that. And by the way, Tiffany Haddish doing something I didn't know she could do. I'm not saying like it was super impressive, but she did really well. She played funny moments and she made some jokes, but she did really well. I bought their chemistry. Was it forced at times? Yes. Did she play the female character in a story about like this broken dude? Yes. But she did good. She held her own against some really strong talents and presented a really compelling story. Ty Sheridan did fine. I think where you felt the cracks in the show was in his delivery of some lines. And again, this comes to me as like an old man, because this guy wrote Taxi Driver. That film came out over 40 years ago. So the dialogue for young people isn't going to be there perfectly. And it shows. He did fine, but sometimes you just feel like the cracks in that delivery. And again, if it's not Oscar Isaac, this thing almost falls apart. It just doesn't hold up that much weight after it, but I still think it looked cool. Like the slow burn, again, it felt like a 70s film. It looked like a 70s film, just the aesthetic and the fadeaways and the long draws on every shot. Like just the camera was very stiff, which I enjoyed. It wasn't like up and down all over the place. It was very stiff. We had long takes of people walking to locations. We had drawn shots, these zoom in lenses, which is very 70s. And that's the aesthetic it was going for, so it worked well in that regard, and it really helped up this film. And one of the other things, I don't think this is a criticism, I just want to say it, I think an amateur filmmaker could shoot something that looks this good. That's not a criticism, I'm just saying, It was a simple aesthetic that I think a lot of filmmakers could play with and make special. I think that's really cool. We get like the weird fisheye dual lens thing when we do like some of the flashbacks in the prison. That's weird. It looked weird, but it just added some extra oomph to that story that made it very interesting. It's a standard film. It plays in a genre that's very familiar to a lot of people. If you like Taxi Driver, it's very much Taxi Driver, but if I had to say, it feels a little nicer than Taxi Driver because it's not this insane piece about a broken man. Like, this guy knows he's trouble from the beginning, and he's not like pretending to be anything he's not. I think that's a little more interesting, but so many familiar beats to those classic stories from the same creator that you're just like, what is the point? If it's not Isaac, would anybody watch this? And I don't think so. I just think it's fine enough, but not special in any way that matters. So the card counter, while I enjoyed myself watching it and I respected the filmmaking involved, I don't think it's that special or unique. And if you've seen Taxi Driver recently before watching this film, you're going to feel every beat almost exactly like that, except this time around, instead of being a taxi driver, this guy just like plays poker and counts cards and shit. Yeah, that kind of sucks. But hey, it's the year of Oscar Isaac because he's got Scenes from a Marriage, he's got Dune still, so more Oscar Isaac is always better. So the card counter, I am going to give a 6. Yeah, it seems about right. A 6 out of 10. Now, thank you guys for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.